actually December the 27th, 1979, in the holiday between Christmas and New Year's. Ed Kagi, Jim Reeves, Kevin Shanley, and I all took a field trip and went to Highway 6 at Highway 59 because Ed had been contacted by Gerald Hines to get us on board to do some land planning, community planning, landscape architecture for the expansion of First Colony, which was then, I think, about 7,500 acres, and it actually became 9,500 almost. It's probably over 10,000 acres now. That was our first trip during the holiday to seeing what the land was all about. The four of us drove down to that intersection, and Highway 6, I think, was a 2-lane asphalt road. Now, it may have been 4 lanes undivided. SWA came from our work in California and across the United States with deep experience in land planning and community planning, combined with the design sensitivity of landscape architecture. The firm came to Houston in 1978. We brought to the design community a level of experience in design in planning, community planning, and landscape architecture, the combination of those skills to the Houston market, not here at that time. And as I recall, between 79 and 1983-84, we probably had 5 to 7 or more people working full-time for 5 or 6 years. Because Hines, we had a very fast-track approach. We're actually developing conceptual designs and maybe design development, and then working directly with the civil engineers on the roads and the drainage greenways and the landscape architecture of the boulevards and the public parks for that part of the First Colony that we were working on. US 59 and Highway 6 and the next intersection, Sweetwater Boulevard, that intersection in the highway right-of-way, we were able to develop orchards of ornamental pear trees in all 4 segments of that intersection. So that the idea of creating the green open space extended along 59 beyond south of Highway 6. Our experience of working on master plan communities in Orange County and then primarily in California and working with developers, the philosophy of beautiful grading, grass, and trees. No shrubs to speak of. You can plant a small tree and it becomes a very big tree. And the prairie, as I recall, and I was looking for some evidence of this number, but I haven't found it, but as I recall, I think we planted probably at least 20,000 or more trees. And when you drive the boulevards in First Colony, we're talking 40, 35 years of development of tree-lined boulevards. Obviously, most of West Harris County and Fort Bend County are prairie. The other part of the planning was looking at innovative ways of developing places to live and communities within a master plan community. And when you look at the site plan, you'll see a variety of different arrangements and configurations, you would say subdivisions within the greater First Colony community. That was actually sort of driven to develop distinct places to live with open space and with a sense of orientation so that you could easily navigate the subdivision. Many of the master plan communities in the greater Houston area, you have a hard time finding your way in, and you certainly have a hard time finding your way out. But you'll see some organization of complete loop streets and circular streets that help to define and create neighborhoods within the greater master plan community of First Colony. There were 2 major moves initially. The dedication of the 4 corners of the intersection of Highway 6 and 59 to green space, so that we would not have retail or your typical gas station, land use at that intersection. The next big move was to establish the landscape setbacks along Highway 6. And the property was primarily, for the most part, it was prairie, but there were native pecan trees on the property. And Jim developed this idea of doing triple rows of pecans on either side of the Highway 6 right-of-way, and to take out the barbed wire fence. So it's basically prairie and barbed wire fence, and we created those green setbacks and then developed 3 rows of pecans on either side of Highway 6, and also pecans that bracketed that intersection of Highway 6 and 59. When you look at the plan, what is now developed in First Colony, you'll see smaller units and smaller areas of development of single-family houses, and some different lot sizes beyond just the typical, 65, 75, 125 foot lot. The topography, the oxbows and the drainage systems in the property help form and inform the development and the configuration of those residential neighborhoods. To develop a master plan community, it's a collaboration, and this certainly was, between the designers, who were SWA Group, and the civil engineers, and the developer, and the flood control, and levee districts. All of those were issues and actually helped form and inform the design and the development of the First Colony. Municipal utility districts were part of the creation of the First Colony neighborhoods. One of the other things I might mention is that maybe in Sweetwater, as I recall, the identity of the neighborhoods were basically all the same. Where in other master plan communities, the entries and the identity were scaled to the value of the individual properties. So those properties that had $200,000 homes would have we'll say, lower level identity, and the homes that were $500,000, the entries would be more grand. But at First Colony in Sweetwater, we took the approach, and I think it was primarily Sweetwater, took the approach that all of the entry and identity would have the same granite, and they would basically be identical except for the names. And so there wasn't this dollar value extension into the graphic identity of the individual neighborhoods. Ed and Gerald Hines had a very sort of close working relationship, and he gave us basically I'm going to say free rein, or he gave us a loose leash, if you will, to bring our best thinking and best design sense to the development of the master plan, and then the implementation and creation of the open space, the parks, and the tree-lined boulevards, and the land planning of the residential communities and even the individual lots, and the development of different products, if you will, when you talk about housing and scale of residential. If you look at the plan, some of the earlier development I mentioned earlier, where they're very long streets and very relatively straight streets, and if you look at the fabric that we developed for First Colony, they're much smaller communities, so that you have a sense of community in your neighborhood, and you're not just one house in a row of 55. So I think that along with the green interventions of thousands of trees, which it was a prairie, and we brought trees to the prairie, that's what creates community in this part of Texas, certainly. And in most places across the United States and even the world. I mean, our firm is working internationally, has been for decades. And the whole concept of developing communities for people to live, work, and play is a universal international formula, if you will, regardless of kind of where in the world you might be living. There are other subdivisions that came along, Greatwood, which is further south, and other places. We're pretty proud of First Colony, and at the time it was groundbreaking, if you will, relative to the quality that Gerald Hines insisted and the quality that we could bring from a creative landscape architecture and planning experience to the project. Sugarland Properties was created as Hines development, master planning development evolved, and we worked until maybe the middle 80s, from 79 to 85, six years. The initial part of the work that we were commissioned to do was built. I think when we talked about the mix of places to work and places to live and places to play and then places to shop, First Colony is, I think, a wonderful example of that, where it is a city. I mean, it has all of the components, and with the development of the City Hall in Sugarland and the creation of the town center adjacent to but separate from the Sugarland Mall, the city actually kind of gravitated the government, and the civic center of the city is basically First Colony. Sugarland was the small little town. There was actually a movie, if you remember the movie, a rural town near Houston. And at the same time, when we began working on First Colony, we actually did the master plan and all the landscape architecture with architects for the Fluor corporate headquarters, which was diagonally across to the northeast of that intersection of Highway 6. And the growth and expansion of Houston to the west and the southwest, that period of time between 1979, 1983, 84, one of our many oil booms, the growth took off. I mean, basically the housing product at First Colony that we were able to develop with Gerald Hines and all the other consultants, but with Hines driving the quality and actually allowing SWA Group and our designers to try new ideas and create better places to live. When we did the master plan, the mall and the shopping areas were just an area on a plan and a different color. But what's happened over the last 40 years obviously is amazing, and it is a thriving community with a performing arts facility and a minor league ball team. And since that time, we have done some projects with the city of Sugarland for parks and related to that area of the performing arts and the area near the expansion of the University of Houston. It's been featured in our brochures and subsequently other work and other projects as land planning and community planning has evolved into other areas, but it is one of SWA Group's benchmark planned communities, along with Woodbridge, which is in Southern California, and a lot of our community planning in Orange County in Southern California. And like I said, we've taken that expertise and design sense to communities actually around the world. Trees in my mind, define communities. I've been a president and past president, past chairman of a nonprofit in Houston called Trees for Houston, which was established in 1983 to promote the planting of street trees in the city of Houston. If you look across the world, great cities have great streets. And First Colony, from our master planning efforts and the initial landscape architecture, has great streets, and it's a great city. So I think that's kind of what sort of you kind of take away when you drive those streets and they're completely canopied in elms or live oaks. You know, hometown USA has sidewalks and street trees, and that's what we wanted to do at First Colony. We've always addressed our work and our projects and our commissions with thinking about in our client base has been places for people to work, places for people to live, and places for people to play and recreation. And the development of the master plan for First Colony, I think the overall master plan includes all of that. When you look at the industrial district on the other side of 59 and the Fleur complex, and we worked with Gerald Hines, worked with Philip Johnson with Gerald Hines on the Sugarland office buildings. Master plan wasn't just a subdivision or a housing development. It included the opportunity for multifamily. We did 2 or 3 of Lion's Head is one of them. We did 2 or 3 of the multifamily housing projects. We worked on retail, I believe Greystone development. The First Colony Master Plan actually kind of created the framework and established some criteria and some benchmarks that future master plan communities had to sort of live up to, because First Colony made some very big strokes and created a paradigm, if you will, of what wonderful master plan communities could be like.